Okay, we're rolling here. Welcome to Keys to Avoiding Deep Trouble, everyone. This is Team Track Kayaks, and we're super happy to have you on board to this program. It's a series that's part of what we call Beyond the Boat, that includes 3 steps to kayaking, avoiding deep trouble, and water equals wellness. My name is Hans. I'm hailing from the wild, wet west coast of British Columbia on Vancouver Island. And today's subject for this call, we're very excited about. It is the expedition there and back, with an emphasis on how to take your life back with our special guest that I'm really proud to introduce in just a moment, Wendy.
Wendy, yeah.
Kayak Wendy. Wendy Killoran. How are you, Wendy? Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm great, and I'm very thrilled to be here. It's literally a few days since I got off the water, so thank you.
Fantastic. Well, we look for that today. I know, Wendy, for folks that don't know you, you're an adventure photographer, you're a writer, you're an inspirational speaker. You've paddled around Haida Gwaii, the Bahamas, Vancouver Island. You've paddled around Iceland. You've done a solar circumnavigation around Newfoundland. You've paddled around all the 5 Great Lakes. And prior to that, you lived a very conventional life before following your dreams of becoming a photographer and an adventurer and leaving a career and a marriage behind. In our talk today, Wendy, we're going to talk about really the definition of life unleashed and how to get there through stories of your journey and some of the life lessons that we can extract out of that. So we're very, very happy to have you on.
Wendy, thank you again.
One thing I read about you, Wendy, that I love is that you live by the motto, love the life you live and live the life you love.
Absolutely. I mean, we need to enjoy life. Joy is a birthright that we have. And we need to make choices that bring joy into our life. And when you do that, you get to love the life that you live. And the life that you live should be a life that deeply resonates with who you want to be and what you want to do.
Fantastic. Well, we've got people from all over the world to hear about this right now. Dean's acknowledged that he's from Queensland, Australia. From Reno, Nevada, Carl's tuning in. We have Clow from Manitoulin Island, Ontario.
Wow.
Places. Yeah, really fantastic. So one thing, Wendy, I just want to share people with is that you just came off a 106-day travel, a kayak travel, solo trip in some of the most remote and challenging waters on the planet.
I did.
You paddled a solo trip from Victoria, British Columbia, the southern tip of Vancouver Island on the United States-Canadian border, and you paddled all the way up to the far northern end, Prince Rupert. And when you couldn't cross the border for political reasons, you turned around and paddled back. And so you and I were talking today, and we identified that was we could coin the term for that expedition, there and back.
I agree. I like that.
So, we're talking about how to take your life back, Wendy, in the context of your experiences. Why is that important?
I think it's important that we live a life that's authentic and true to ourselves. We're not born to please others, because when you choose to please others, you might not necessarily be pleasing yourself. And we need to live a life that is going to be expansive and joyful for ourselves. And the only way to do that is to make choices that truly deeply resonate with who you are, because we're all born with song inside our soul. And we need to let that song be sung. And to be able to do that, we make choices that bring us to that place where we feel we are living a life that's meant to be for us, that brings us joy.
Terrific. What's the problem with not tapping into that?
Well, I find when you don't tap into that, because for the longest time I was living a life where I felt I was on autopilot. and I was doing things to please others. And, we as small infants were born into a world where we are educated and programmed to be a certain way. And we believe that that's the only way to be. But my journey has brought me on a journey where I question everything. And I think we need to start to question everything so that we can find truth in what really, truly, deeply matters with us.
Okay. And so what's the opportunity that's there if we do that? You're saying it doesn't have to be that way. We don't have to live in chaos and struggle.
I think the opportunity is you come to a deeper state of being. You get to really know who you are. You get to know what really resonates in life, and you get to start making choices that empower yourself and that bring a happiness and joy and a joie de vivre to the life that you live, because life is meant to be a joyous thing. It shouldn't be just, all work and no play, because I feel what I do now is quite playful and it resonates.
Okay, good. So it sounds like the big idea or the overall goal in many ways is living a life unleashed.
Absolutely. So a life unleashed means for most of us, we have to reclaim who we are. We have to reclaim the life that, brought us joy when we were children. That, when you are a child, you're born with such pure innocence. You know what brings you joy. You know whether you love being outdoors or whether you like playing music or writing stories. You know that. You intuitively know that.
Now, Wendy, you're a writer, you're a speaker, you're an inspirational guide, if you will. In addition to being a kayaker, you're a photographer. What draws you to that, to those elements of storytelling?
I find that when you create a vast array of life experiences, then it also provides opportunity for storytelling, because you are moving outside of your comfort zone and moving into what I call the mysterious unknown. And when you step outside of your comfort zone, that's truly where the magic happens. That's where you start to experience experiences that you can't experience if you're sitting in a living room watching a television.
Yeah. Okay. So one could also equate just, being out of your comfort zone a little bit is where maximum learning happens. So
I would agree with that.
It sounds like one of the things that you're alluding to is that there's real power in the learning. And part of what draws you to these elements of self-expression is getting out of your comfort zone so that you're in that learning state.
Right. And I'm not just talking about intellectual learning. It's a learning that goes deeper than that, where you create a greater amount of wisdom within you, and where you learn what truly deeply matters in life. It's not simply an intellectual learning, but you learn about the power of love, for example, and how that needs to be a driving force in life.
I love that. Yeah. So the way you look at knowledge is more of a continuum. At one end is intuitive knowledge. At the other end is intellectual knowledge. And it sounds like you really work the whole range of knowledge there.
Right. Because we want to be holistic beings. We want to not stay in a small compartmentalized state of being. I find I'm drawn to being on expansive bodies of water because I want to live an expansive life. And I feel that that's sort of synonymous with being on big bodies of water. It then shows me that feels expansive, and that's the way life should feel. You don't want to feel constricted.
Really fantastic. So let's talk about that for a second. Before we dive into your expeditions and your expanded life as a full-time expeditioner, you've identified in some of your writings that, previously you lived a conventional life before following your dreams. What does that mean? What are the bullet points of that previous life that we might be able to connect with you about?
Okay, well, a conventional life to me is the life that I was expected to live. I grew up in a family with siblings, and I had an average middle class upbringing, and I did all the things that were expected of me, including going to university, getting married, getting a job, getting a mortgage. But intuitively in my soul, I knew I wanted to have something that went beyond that. It didn't feel as fulfilling as what I wanted life to feel. I definitely have no regrets, because when you make choices and they don't resonate, they redirect you to making choices that do start to resonate. So every choice we make is not a mistake. It's actually a redirection to guiding you to live a life that resonates more deeply with what you want from life.
Really fantastic. Great. So, the particulars of the situation aren't so important, but the conventional life, by your definition, is when you're really sort of shaping and living under the expectations of others that are incongruent with maybe what's more deeply inside of you.
Absolutely. Nobody can know exactly what's best for you except for you yourself. And that goes for everything. That goes for your medical choices. That goes for your, educational choices. That goes for your personal choices. It goes for any choice that you make. Only you yourself can truly deeply know what is the best choice to make. And I think in this state of being that we're in right now, it's important to make choices that deeply resonate and to be truly convicted to them so that you can maintain authenticity and be a sovereign being.
That's really fantastic. At Track, one of the things that we've been kind of a theme of our conversations has been taking your life back. And I think it really speaks to what you're talking about here. So, as we dive into what your life as an adventure expedition will look like, I'd love to include the audience here. I invite everyone on here to find that chat and tell us for you, what is living a life unleashed? What does it look like? What are some examples or things that you that are in accordance or congruent with what you really want that might be counter to either the situation you're in now or expectations that others have of you? Let's think aspirational for a moment. What is life unleashed for you? Just please put it in the chat box. And let's see what that list looks like as we think about and unpack really what it's meant for Wendy. So Wendy, I want to start with you in terms of your life adventure. You started kayaking in 1992.
I did.
Tell us the story about, what drew you in and any moment that sort of that you can identify with it was that it was the right thing to do for you, that it was in accordance with that resonance you speak of.
I didn't really know that sea kayaking existed. I knew of, canoeing and river kayaking. And I guess in 1989, I had two profound experiences that were quite pivotal in my life. Firstly, I was hiking the Southwest Way in Cornwall and Devon in Great Britain. And I was standing on a cliff and I looked down and I saw what looked like a pencil case of pencil crayons that had spilled onto the open ocean. And I realized those are sea kayaks, and it deeply intrigued me. And I filed it in my memory and I kept walking. And then about a half a year later, I was in the Florida Everglades and I was sitting at Flamingo Campground watching a sunset, although I was 5 months pregnant. And I could see silhouetted palm trees and diving pelicans. And in silence, paddling into that vision that I'm describing right now, was one solo kayaker paddling towards the sunset. And I realized in that moment, it was an epiphany where I said, I want to do that. I need to do that.
And why did you want to do that? What was the draw?
The draw was, I've always been a person who recognizes the value of motion being equated to wellness. And I've always been active. And I also realized that I love being in nature. And I realized that I could connect motion and nature and water and take it to the new level of being, take it to exploring a realm that I had not really explored before. I was basically raised in a family of landlubbers, but the sea was calling. And so this was the means for me to explore the sea.
Fantastic. So it sounds like it was an avenue of exploration, but it sounds like at the heart, there was a sense of connection.
Absolutely.
Connected you to the natural world, connected you with that expanse of opportunity that you talked about.
Well, yeah. And the natural world, one of the things that really, really deeply draws me to the natural world is I have this strong connection with beauty, beauty in nature, beauty that surrounds me. And the thing is, like when we go to school, we are sort of pegged into this is what you need to learn, this is what you need to learn, but we're not really taught to learn beyond that. So most of us have a disconnect with, well, what is beauty? Beauty is something that media portrays as makeup on a woman's face, but that's not necessarily beauty at all. Beauty comes from the heart. Beauty can be seen from the soul.
Got it. So the connection to beauty and the connection to the natural world really drew you in. Let's fast forward to 2002. I read an article that you wrote in Paddling Magazine about your first time visiting Iceland as a paddler, and tell us just a little bit about what happened there that was significant toward your progression.
I was actually originally going to travel to Iceland with my father and my daughter. And then my father basically said, because I had said we'd have to do some camping, he had booked a trip to Holland. So I thought, what am I going to do? And I found a group of kayakers on a website who had given an invite saying, come and visit us next summer. So I decided, yep, I'm going to come and visit you next summer, and I'm going to kayak up in Iceland. And while I was up there, I had an extraordinary experience of getting to feel what it feels like to be a minority, because I was the only woman. I was the only non-Icelandic person on a journey with 6 Icelandic men. And by the end of the trip, I felt a strong connection with their culture and with their country. And I had also been invited to then go to a geothermally heated swimming pool and learn how to roll a kayak in my early 40s. So I just want to stress that we can learn anything that we choose to learn if we are open to doing that.
Awesome. Great. So it sounds like not only did you become a Viking and enter the club, but you also, I think that it sounds like the learning from that is that, one can learn new tricks at any age, really.
For sure. And especially, if you're going to learn how to roll a kayak, it's certainly wonderful to do that in a geothermally heated swimming pool where, I'm an Aquarian, and Aquarians love warmth.
Awesome. Fantastic. I love it. So a couple of comments here in the chat I want to share with you, Wendy, just to help you know that you're among your tribe and in the right place, is that for some of the folks in here, they're describing that Life Unleashed is living life intentionally in the outdoors, sailing, sea kayaking, backpacking. Lisa says that it's really spending time in nature as far away from civilization as possible and connecting with animals that we share the planet with.
Yes.
Dean identifies that the ocean is his happy place. And that Brad expresses his commitment to Life Unleashed as really living no less than your passion. And so one of the things I want to share with people, just so they can get more insight from you, Wendy, after this call, is a link to the article you wrote in Paddling Magazine. It's in the chat right now. The First Lady article, really great. It's pretty humorous, and really love that. So let's talk about another expedition. In 2006, then, Wendy, you solo circumnavigated Newfoundland in somewhere between 68 and 104 days. And you joined another woman on that expedition. Tell us just really briefly about that, and let's unpack some of the learnings that were there.
It's been a lifetime of reading biographies or autobiographies, actually, of people who had done journeys that really deeply resonated, like biked around the world or sailed around the world. And I read those accounts voraciously, and I decided, well, why not me? And so I did a warm-up paddle in 2005 around Prince Edward Island. And I realized I could do whatever I choose. So I decided in 2006 that I was going to paddle around Newfoundland. And I wanted to just feel what it truly felt like to live your dream, to do something out of the normal expectation, because a lot of people tried to talk me out of doing that because they thought, oh, if you do something like that, you're going to die. But you know what? I'd rather die doing something I love to do than live a life where I'm slowly dying inside. And so that's why it's important to reclaim your life, because, if you don't do what truly resonates in your heart, you're slowly withering away. And that's not a life at all. So when I went to Newfoundland, I paddled for 2 weeks with Freya Hoffmeister, who has done a lot of world-class kayaking. I had spent 68 days on the water, averaging about 40 kilometers a day. But the journey itself took 104 days because I had a lot of weather days or days where I needed to rest or provision or whatever, or enjoy the communities.
Yeah. Terrific. And so that's really great. You had Freya join you. For people who don't know Freya, I will put a link in the text also to the Crackle TV introduction of her with her project with Justine. So you can get that reference. But it sounds like in that expedition, you've identified that one of the things that helped you find courage for that was the recognition of the cost of inaction. That sure, it might be, you might die a sudden death to a giant rogue wave and drowning. However, the cost of inaction for you at that time, you recognized might be a slower, more painful death of living a life more constrained.
Right.
What other learnings did you pull out of that expedition?
Well, I did learn that we are definitely more powerful than we were ever taught to believe that we are. I'm literally a petite woman, 5'6", very small frame. And I originally always thought that it was my willpower that was sort of the force that allowed me to do what I do. But now I realize it is a more holistic thing. It's not just my willpower. It's the power of my heart. It's my passion. It's my connection to the divine, because source energy wants us to create a life of abundance and to have a life that truly resonates with who we are, and is always guiding us to that through our emotions. When we feel sad or when we feel anger, it's just redirecting us to say, well, what needs to change? Because we're always at a choice point. We can choose to have the courage to follow our dreams, or we can choose to let fear rule our lives and then not live that life that really truly is deeply calling us.
Really rich. I appreciate that. Everyone who's interested in profession or like personal development knows about this growth mindset. What is it about that trip that helped you see that we're stronger than we believe, and that the secret for you to do that was to maintain that growth mindset of abundance?
Well, I recognized then at the end of that trip that I am definitely stronger than I was ever taught to believe, because firstly, I became the first woman on the planet to actually achieve a circumnavigation by kayak around Newfoundland. So it's not every day that someone does that. And I was averaging 40 kilometers a day, which is almost equivalent to a marathon. So I was basically paddling a marathon 68 out of 104 days. So I realized I had physical strength. But I also realized that I had an incredible amount of courage, because I would often stop at fishing villages. And in the fishing villages, the people would always say, "Ye got nerve, girl." And it's like I started to recognize I was facing fears. I was paddling across 40-kilometer crossings across these big, big bays in fog to reduce a 10,000-kilometer circumnavigation to about a 3,000-kilometer circumnavigation. And I just realized that, you know what? I never realized I could do that until I actually went out there and tried to do that.
Oh, cool. Awesome. So basically, that sense of accomplishment and affirmative affirmation really helped to create that sense for you that you're stronger than you believe. And it sounds like in some ways is that, by simply doing things, you got to expand what otherwise was a self-limiting belief for you.
I agree. We
Okay,
have
great.
to. we have to try and overcome self-limiting beliefs. And I did always, when I was in a tough situation, I actually gave myself a mantra where I would say, I can do it. I can do it. And I knew I could do it. I had built up my lifetime to be able to do that.
I love that. I love that having the mantra can help displace, the self-talk that is full of doubt or fear.
Right. I wouldn't let that enter my mind.
Yeah, so great. So let's fast forward because we can't talk about all your expeditions. You've done so much in the world, but let's fast forward to 2018. You did a very notable Great Lakes exploration, and you were almost 5 months on the water and living afield for that. Tell us a little bit about, at a high level, that trip, and what is the learning that came out of it?
Well, the learning that came out of it is that we are more connected to everything that exists than we truly recognize. We are connected to everything. And that journey was interesting because I was paddling across international borders. I had to start my journey in the U.S. because of technicalities, but I paddled from the U.S. Minnesota border back into Northern Ontario on Lake Superior. And I paddled across timelines, which I'd never done before. But I was really blessed that summer because I was gifted basically the opportunity to succeed at what I was doing because I was gifted, for the most part, calm, sunny weather. There was only one time where I really had a nasty storm come up on Lake Superior where I thought, oh, I really understand how this lake has to be completely respected because the power of change was very sudden and very furious. And that's why I also recognize that, you have to be prepared for any situation. And I was actually thankful that I was in full immersion gear. Okay.
Are you appreciative of that because of a capsize that was particularly threatening?
The lake is very cold, and I haven't capsized very often in my life, unintentionally. But the power of the lake surprised me. And I sometimes, because I have basically never really done a capsize that had my life in peril, I sometimes become, I guess, there's always the balance about, do I dress for the weather or do I dress for the water? But, the water is definitely, even here in coastal British Columbia, is an element that needs to be respected because water can snatch your life quickly.
Yeah. So was it that sort of moment of peril that helped to connect you with a sense, or that give you the sense that you're connected to all that is? Was it a moment of, are you suggesting you crossed a veil in some way?
I feel I have a high sense of intuition. The stone I wear is labradorite, which is supposed to connect you to your intuition. But I feel I've created a body that is, I guess, in touch and in tune with how intuition comes to me because I don't drink alcohol. I, for the most part, eat a plant-based diet. I spend a lot of time in nature. I remove myself from anything that costs me peace of mind. So I no longer watch media and, let all that negativity try and infiltrate me. And so as a result, I feel I have a strong sense of intuition, and that intuition is always guiding me to make the proper choices on water. Plus, I feel, because I've done so much expedition kayaking, I feel that I have gained a lot of wisdom, and thus I'm able to use good judgment in the choices that I make.
Really fantastic. Good. Love that. And so what you're really identifying there is that good judgment can come from poor experiences.
Absolutely.
And that you need to have poor experiences to inform that you actually have good judgment. You can't get good judgment without it.
Right. When your heart is pounding, you feel a huge, immense sense of relief that you made it safely back to shore, because for a kayaker, that's always the every day. It's a series of going out onto the water and coming back to shore. And so that interface is very important. And so it's always important that you're able to create plan A and plan B for how to get back to shore. I've been known to do U-turns. I've been known to make my, I have a goal set, but instead I realize, I'm not going to reach that goal. I need to stop earlier. I need to get off the water.
Let's talk about that right now. Let's fast forward now into the expedition you just completed. And I want to unpack the recent expedition. You spent 106 days from Victoria to Prince Rupert. How many miles is that for people to get a sense
from
of?
Victoria to Prince Rupert is about 1,000 kilometers. Okay. But of course, it depends upon the route you take. And so that's one way. Because I paddled almost 2,000 kilometers, but because we have such a convoluted coast and it's riddled with so many islands, you have a multitude of route choices. And so my route, once I got past Vancouver Island and went around Cape Caution, the exposed area of the British Columbia shoreline, I started to, once I left Shearwater, Bella Bella, I started to go as far west as I could to more open, outside-edged islands. Also because I was reducing the risk of having grizzly bear encounters. I was told that if I went further out, I'd have less encounters with potentially dangerous bears.
I got it. So this is interesting. This is you're paddling in some of the most challenging waters in the world. The weather is a serious contender. You have huge tidal ranges. You have incredibly strong currents. You have predatory animals like bears. You have predatory animals in the water. You have, and you're completely remote and solo in this context. Help us understand a little bit. What are some of the other? How did you understand the objective hazards here?
Well, I don't live in fear, and I do my research. For example, a few days ago, I had to paddle around Quadra Island to get back down to mid Vancouver Island. I live on the Salish Sea, so I had to get south of Campbell River. And to do that, I had the choice to go either through Seymour Narrows or Surge Narrows. And I'd gone through Surge Narrows twice. So I decided to try a new route and go through Seymour Narrows. And I was looking at moon phases and tidal ranges, the current. And so I decided obviously then to paddle with the flow of the current. And I luckily was able to paddle through the narrows at a time when it was the mid-moon phase. So the tidal range is much less. And I tried to get through the Seymour Narrows when it was close to slack tide. And it was a non-event, but I know that it can be a very highly turbulent place to be, and it could be life-threatening if you don't do your research and don't prepare to do the right timing.
Yeah, wise choice. Michael Stern states in the chat that wisdom comes from lots of mistakes. So while you nailed that one, I'm sure there's lots of others that informed your choice in that time. So lots of objective hazards here. For folks that maybe haven't done really long distance, high latitude solo trips, what does that mean in terms of gear? What did you have? What was essential?
Well, I'd love to say that I paddled a track kayak, but that will be in the near future. I paddled a kayak that I'm familiar with. It's a hard shell kayak. Yeah. And I've decked out that kayak so that I'm completely comfortable, that it's completely seaworthy and is able to take the rigors of a expedition. So I've got a hull strip put on it. I've got Kevlar bulkheads. I've got a compass built right into it. I've customized it so that I have my gear sitting exactly the way I need it to be. So if I need a spare paddle, I am able to reach it, because a lot of people, might put a spare paddle way behind them, but not be able to reach it when they actually need to access a spare paddle. I keep a VHF radio always within reach with me. I have gear that I've used in the past that I can count on, and I keep adapting the system that I use so that it keeps evolving and changing so that it benefits me for the needs for every single journey. Because when I paddled in Baja, Mexico for 3 months, I took a minimum of 23 liters of water with me in the kayak. Whereas here in coastal BC, which is the West Coast, which is the wet coast, I don't need to take 23 liters of water with me. So I take various methods of filtering water, but I don't worry about that. But the gear that I do use is gear that I've used in the past that I know I can rely on. And I've tested it and I'm familiar with it. And I think that's important, that you take gear that you know you can trust and you know is going to keep you safe and warm and dry and protected.
Yeah, that's critical. One of the things that I loved about your trip was your Instagram feed on that. And I think you're probably the master of the selfie.
Thank you.
Really good at that. I loved it, but it really told the story. And one of the things that I really appreciated was your, that really helped to tell that story was your sharing of quotes that I think told a story about where you were in terms of your mental headspace and maybe, the challenges you were facing or what was going through your mind. And one of the great quotes that you had on the selfie, I think, was with Michael Beckwith. The only authority that you have is the authority of your own conviction. What was going through your mind when you chose that quote?
Well, we are in unprecedented times, and we right now need to certainly question everything because I think what we were programmed and taught to believe is true is not necessarily true. And we were programmed to believe that our government and our education system and religious systems and all that have our best interests at heart, but not necessarily, especially with what's evolving in present day history. So we need to question everything. And so we need to be convicted to our beliefs. We need to decide, well, what do I believe? And we need to stand firm in those beliefs, because if our beliefs are contrary to what mainstream media's beliefs are, we need to have the courage to stand up to that and to be convicted to our own beliefs, because if we allow others to coerce us and to manipulate us, we're not being authentic and we're not being courageous.
Yeah, so it sounds like one of the themes that informed your decision is you basically were in touch with your values and you let your values help guide you in what you should or shouldn't do on any one decision. For
sure. And, even on the journey, it's like I couldn't escape the mainstream narrative that's playing out now with the history right now. I did notice that there was a lot of chemtrails in the sky. And this was even in remote areas of British Columbia, which I found quite befuddling.
Wendy, let's walk back from that a little bit. Michael Stern asks that he's interested in your comments around solo versus partner versus group, both technically and physiologically, especially with issues of isolation and solo paddling. So I think what this comment, I think also, invites the question of what is your approach to risk management in a solo setting? If you could unpack that comment from Michael a little bit and share with us, I think that would be really appropriate.
Well, I think when you paddle solo, there's you don't have to worry about group dynamics. And I love to paddle with a partner and I love paddling in groups. But when I paddle alone, I now am responsible for every choice I make, and every choice I make, I hope I make in sound judgment, and it builds my self-belief and it empowers me to expand and reach a greater sense of potential. I find when you do something solo and you have true self-belief in yourself, it puts it in a different realm of what you've accomplished, because now the only person you can count on is yourself. And you have to now base every decision that you make on your past experiences so that you make sound decisions that keep you safe, but still bring you to the edge. Because for me, part of going out adventuring is experiencing the thrill of living a life unleashed, which can potentially bring you to what I call the edge. Yeah. And the edge is exciting, but it's always a balance of risk versus reward.
Yeah, Wendy, let's. I want to identify a couple of things there. Thank you. You've, just for context, Michael Stern is also a psychologist, so he's a psych therapist, and anyway, he has a deep understanding of that. So I think you've really identified that there is an ease in going by yourself on the psychological side. It's just a lot easier than to deal with group dynamics. The other thing that I want to illustrate there is you're talking about earlier that what works for you in terms of living a life unleashed is living slightly outside of that comfort zone. And we understand that, outside of your comfort zone becomes a maximum amount of learning to a point in which it's disabling. And so, your threshold for solo paddling has been developing over time.
Yes.
And so it is an appropriate context for you to take this tremendous solo navigation because it has you outside of your comfort zone at times, but within the threshold of your ability to still make good decisions and not be disabled by either fear or incompetence. And
I agree.
Yeah, so let's just put that context in there. And then I want to touch on Michael's other side of his conversation. Well, what about tactically? How do you see solo paddling and your approach to risk management from a tactical sense as solo versus group?
Tactically, kayaking, although there's a lot of variables, I create a lot of sense of routine in what I do. So I to capitalize on the lightest winds possible, I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning so I could launch by 6:30 when there's calm winds. I always was well acquainted with the route that I wanted to take and possible other options, and definitely areas where I thought, well, this would make a safe place to pull out if I need to. So I was always familiar with what I could potentially expect up ahead by looking at my map the previous night. I always kept my body well fueled. I never launched without having a breakfast that, felt that it was going to keep me energized and alert and give me the energy, like I say, that I needed. And I use intuition to make my tactical choices too. I listen to what my gut feeling is telling me. I've sat still and then sometimes thought, oh, should I sit still? And then all of a sudden, an hour or two later, okay, there's the big wind that they were predicting or whatever. So I do listen to my intuition.
Wendy, I love that. So it sounds like one thing that was critical for your risk management approach tactically is really proactively or systematizing a proactive approach to minimizing any variables that you had control over. Really great. And the other is clarity around that intuition was going to be a powerful source of knowledge for you, and recognizing what it was, its strengths and weaknesses. And it certainly allowed you to, paddling solo, also eliminate any confusion around leadership within a group.
For sure. And one other thing that I would like to add is that I now, because I feel I'm not paddling to prove anything, I paddle for myself. I paddle on the side of caution. So for example, if I am making a 12-kilometer crossing to a small island, I choose, if it's foggy, I choose to sit still. I will not make that crossing in the fog. I'm not going to be a speed bump to a cruise ship or big boat or whatever.
Sure, yeah. I think this answers Rebecca's question. I'm going to state this in case you want to add anything else to it, but she's got experience as a long-term solo thru hiker. and a backpacker. So she understands the impact that is a potential safety issue of others who may need rescue or support. That's certainly common in that community because kayaking is sometimes more accessible for people to get out when they're unqualified and to be surprised by things that require them to rescue. And rescue is just more of an option, so it's easier to to call on. How does this factor into kayaking for you?
I think it's actually one of the reasons why I have often gone on solo paddles, because when I paddled in Sardinia, I paddled with someone who had never done a expedition paddle before, and he was not up to the challenge. And I realized one of the most important decisions I can make when I am on an expedition is the dynamics of the people that you choose to participate in, succeeding at whatever expedition is that you choose to partake in. And so now I actually, I love who I am, and I know who I am because I've spent a lot of time with myself. When I spent a lot of time in solitude and wilderness, I know what I'm capable of, and I know what my limits are, and I know how much I'm willing to push myself, and at what point I need to say, I need to stop.
Yeah, it's great. Awesome. And this is really great. That's, that attunement is critical in everything that we do, right?
Yeah.
Identifying when whatever we're doing no longer serves us and having the courage to stop that and pivot or make a change is what I'm hearing that you've been very successful at in your life.
I believe I have been. I determine what my goals are for an expedition. So if I decide that I feel that what I needed to accomplish has been served and has been accomplished, I decide whether I've attained the success that I want or don't want. So even a few days ago, although I didn't paddle right home to where I had thought I was going to paddle, I recognized that my journey was done. I had nothing left to prove. I had had the experiences that I needed for me to feel that this was a journey that taught me what I needed to learn, that fulfilled me. And the time had come. At some point you need to, because everything is living life in balance. At some point you say, okay, when is enough enough?
Yeah. So Wendy, what were the fulfillments and learnings that you got from this most recent trip? 106 days, Victoria to Prince Rupert and back, there and back.
Oh my gosh. This was a journey like none other. I mean, all journeys have been, extraordinary, but I've met incredible people on this journey, but the journey going north, so the journey going there to Prince Rupert was more a journey of making distance, being in solitude in beautiful places in the wilderness. But once I got to Prince Rupert, the journey changed because I couldn't go into Alaska like I had planned to. So I had to do a U-turn, and then I had to question, why am I doing this? What is the new purpose of this trip that has now morphed into something that I hadn't really truly visualized? And I sat with that, and I decided I would dedicate every paddle stroke to the power of love. And I'm not just talking, romantic love. I'm talking love for life, love for adventure, love for oneself, love for God, love for nature, love for passion, love for people, love for communities, love for experiences, love for learning. Love is a choice. It's not just an emotion. Love is a choice. And when I made that choice to dedicate every paddle stroke to the power of love, I just had so many blessings flowing into the journey that it was quite extraordinary.
I love the story, how basically how important it is to have not only the values, to be attuned to the values, to be able to ask your questions, the should and shouldn'ts on a daily basis. But now you're clarifying the need to really have a purpose. And it sounds like, getting turned around at the border created a subjective hazard for you because you lost purpose. and you had to refine that purpose. And it sounds like you were able to, in your U-turn, find a purpose that carried you all the way home. And so you've identified how you've overcome proactively objective hazards on this trip and subjective hazards.
For sure. Yeah.
Really fantastic. It's rare that you have, such a profound subjective hazard in a solo context.
But you know what? You're right. But these are unprecedented times, right? So you get unprecedented subjective hazards.
Great. So let's talk about some of the key points then. Thank you for sharing that. I invite people to, at this point, to, in the chat room, any other questions that come up for Wendy about this last trip or her learnings from previous trips or where she finds her courage. Let us know what questions you have. I want to cover some of the key points we pulled out here, Wendy, that I think is a theme throughout your storytelling today. One is, it sounds like one must be dedicated to doing what resonates.
Yes, we need to be dedicated to what resonates because, like I say, everything in life is vibrational frequency, and we can choose fear or we can choose love. And I choose to spread light, love, and truth. And I think in these unprecedented times, this is the journey that we all hopefully will recognize and embark upon. And so for me, it made the journey more fulfilling. It gave it deeper meaning. It gave it a bigger purpose. And as a result, I was having more meaningful encounters with people. And the flow of encounters that I had with people was extraordinary. Go ahead.
Yeah, that really leads to the second key point that I'm pulling out of this, that is the power of feeling connected.
Yes. And even though I'm solo, it creates a deep connection within myself. It creates a deep connection with God because God is always with me, and God guides animals into my life in the most extraordinary ways. I started journaling about which creature would be the first to visit me every time I came to shore to my next new campsite. And it's always quite profound what I would discover. Yeah, I had a lot of encounters with hummingbirds. I've had some encounters with wolves. It's wonderful.
Great. And so the third point that I'm really pulling out of this conversation today is the need to listen to your intuition as a guide, or at least that's what works for you. That's been a constant theme here.
Yes.
For Wendy.
We need to listen to the little whispers because they're always guiding us. And for myself, I was not really taught that. I know that, like, when I was a school child, I was always taught that my first impulse for like multiple choice would probably be the right choice, but we're not really taught how to tap into intuition. But I think once we become very present and very quiet, that inner knowing gets heightened. We become more aware. It's about awareness.
So I love that. We all have we value different ends of that knowledge continuum, as you've stated here. Some are drawn to intellectual, some are drawn to intuition, but it sounds like the intuition can be a guide for us, no matter what your relationship to knowledge. And that the key to that is having the presence and stillness to allow it to become known to you.
That's correct.
The fourth key that I'm hearing from you in this conversation is that everything is a progression of choices.
Absolutely. Our choices lead us to the moment we're in right now. Our choices lead us to what our life is like right now. And so we are always at a choice point. And I started questioning many years ago, what creates wellness? And I did recognize that I felt really well when I was sitting in a kayak on the water, because being on the water is a dynamic environment. Water can be calm and still and reflective. Water can be enlivening, and water can even be scary. Water can bring you to a point where you have to respect its power and make wise choices so that you can live to tell incredible stories about a life of adventure.
Love it. Awesome. One of the things that I love about your story, particularly around the Great Lakes, is that all of this can happen in our own backyard. We don't have to fly to Newfoundland or to Baja. We can do it in the Great Lakes if that's what's in your backyard.
Right.
And it sounds like we can find those thresholds and out of our comfort zone anywhere we are.
Well, I made quantum change in my life. I walked away from a career that no longer resonated. I walked away from a marriage that had served its purpose. I made lifestyle choice changes about what I would consume, including not consuming media and consuming plant-based foods. And I'm sorry, I guess I drew a blank there. Anyways, our choices are always leading us to creating a sense of wellness and well-being.
Great. Wendy, I've got a question here from Wendell. He became interested in kayaking at the young age of 65. He's been paddling for 3 years. And he's curious, as you look, toward the future for yourself and future kayak expeditions, how are you going to mitigate or work with the aging process in light of being a solo expeditioner?
Oh, I don't look at aging as something that's going to bring me down. I'm going to make life choices that keep me vibrant. And that even when I walk into stores and stuff and have brief encounters with store clerks and stuff, I talk about the importance of staying strong throughout life. And that means emotional strength and physical strength. And so we need to always make choices that keep us active, that keep us healthy, that keep us holistically healthy, because I don't even think about, I'm getting older, I won't be able to do that. I always just say, I'm going to stay strong. I'm not going to let aging defy what I can do with my life. Yeah,
great, Wendy. I think we can all acknowledge there are realities of an aging body, but it sounds like it's part of your approach to that is the progression of choices. Right. Is the making the choices every day to make your youth last as long as it can. And if you don't mind me asking, Wendy, how old are you?
I'm 60.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm 60. And you know what? I was still cranking out some days where it was like 40 kilometers a day. One day I couldn't find a campsite. I did about 62 kilometers the one day. And last summer, when my daughter had announced that she had an art show in Vancouver and I was on the Labrador border, I paddled 150K in 3 days because I realized every paddle stroke was dedicated to my daughter.
Awesome. Great. Well, you're getting a lot of support in the chat for that comment. Carl points out that the Greeks taught that the importance of healthy mind and body. Yeah. Fred applauds you and identifies that he learned to roll at 60.
Yay!
Yeah. So really great. Wendy, I really want to thank you for your conversation here today, for your transparency, for your sharing with us everything you have, unpacking your adventures a little bit. I know you're an inspiration to many, and these 4 points that you've really helped articulate here today are really inspiring, and I think something that we can all find in our own way to do, being dedicated to what resonates for us, that there's power in feeling connected, the need to listen to your intuition as a guide, and that life unleashed is a progression of choices that can happen anywhere. It starts now, and it's incremental changes compound over time.
Right. And it's never too late. It's never too late to make the changes necessary to live a life unleashed.
Wendy, you're an inspiration. You're a guide. We're really proud to have you in the community. I'm wondering what closing comments you might have, or final story that either connects us with a special place or a recap of what you said.
Well, I would like to thank Track for having me be able to express my voice. I do find that when we go out in nature on a daily basis, whether it's in a kayak or not, we are nourishing our souls. We are all part of nature. And so it's important to make a strong connection with nature, because nature is a healing place. And, you know, a large part of our bodies is water. And so water is a healing substance. And so we need to stay strongly connected, because this is part of the healing process for all of us. And so I hope that everybody feels that they, no matter what stage of life they're in or where they are, that there's no such thing as excuses. The only thing we have are priorities. And so if staying healthy, staying empowered, staying sovereign, staying, well and strong is a priority, you'll make the choices necessary that will lead you to live that lifestyle.
Awesome. Really great. Wendy, I want to thank you. I want to thank all of you for being part of this community and subscribing to engagements like this. At this point, we're going to wrap up the formal part of the show. We can open up mics and just kind of officially eddy out, if you will. So thank you, Wendy. Please stay with us for anybody who has any questions live. And we'll see you on the next show if you got to jump.
I would like to say thank you to you, Hans, and to the Track team as well for having me on this program today. So thank you and bless you.